Hey friends, it's Lauren Taylor. Thank you for joining me in my craft room today. I'm so excited because it is the new Trinity Stamps autumn release, and we are hopping along today to show you some of the new products. I'm going to be sharing a card using the new Beautiful Bare Trees stamp set. It's coordinating dies and coordinating layered stencils. There are 5 stencils in this layering set to help you make beautiful trees, and I love that you can have different colors and textures using stencil paste. You can make spring, summer, fall, or winter trees with all of these different stencils. And I'm going to be using some of the acetate shaker pouches for Slimline cards for this card. And I'm going to be grabbing a couple different embellishment mixes. I have the Autumn Sunset Leaf Confetti and the Crunchy Leaves Clay embellishment mixes. So let's jump right into making our card today. So I'm going to use the tallest tree here because I am making a slimline card and it's going to be in portrait. So I wanted to make sure that I was getting the most space of my tree onto this panel, and it's cut to 8 inches by 3 inches. And once I know which of the layered stencils I'm going to be using with this tree, I'm going to use a grip mat to keep my paper in place, and then I'm going to line up my stencil so that way when I add my stamped tree image, it will align with the bottom of my panel. I'm going to use a little bit of masking tape just to make sure my stencil doesn't move and that I block any of the paper underneath the stencil in case I get a little crazy with my ink blending. I want to make sure I don't get it lower than where I want it to be through the openings in the stencil. I have blender brushes here. I bought a whole nother set during the sale because I wanted to have some for dye inks and my oxide inks. So you can see the little gray dot. That's my own personal sticker that I have so I know which ones are for my distress oxides. And I'm starting with the first color of Rusty Hinge and putting that through the A stencil that is in these 5 layered stencils, or the first stencil I should say. And I'm going to line it up with the second stencil behind the first one, so that way I can see where I can line these up together. You can see the ink through the second stencil, and I'm lining it up with the first, and then I can pull away the first stencil, and now my second stencil is lined up perfectly. I'm going to add that masking tape again, and I'm going to do this for all 5 stencils, but I'm not going to show it every time. I just wanted you to see how I am able to line up all of these stencils without the stamped image. So now I'm blending in some wild honey, and then I moved on to mustard seed, which is such a pretty complementary yellow. I brought in gathered twigs as a brown, and my last stencil has fired brick for a nice red color for all of my fall leaves. So here is how all of those leaves look layered together. Again, this is without stamping the tree. I just wanted the leaves to be on my panel. So now I want to ground my tree and also give my tree some dimension. So I'm bringing out peeled paint and I'm going to blend just a little bit, maybe about an inch up from the bottom of my cardstock to give a look of a nice little grassy ground for my tree. And then with speckled egg, I'm blending in some sky. I'm not actually touching my leaves, just kind of blending it in, trying to give it a faded look into the top of my leaves. I'm going to clean up my mess here, and then I'm going to bring out some metallic watercolor. This is the HydraColour Glitter and Gold palette for Trinity, and I'm using the yellow gold. So just sprayed a little bit of water so I can pick it up with my paintbrush, moisten up the gold metallic watercolor, and then splatter it all over my panel. I'll clean that water mess up as well, and then I'm going to set this panel aside to dry. So while that's drying, I'm going to move on to my stamping, and I'm grabbing my Misty some more watercolor cardstock just so I could have the same color across the whole card. And I'm going to get all of my different stamps I'm using from this new stamp set. So I have my tall tree, I have my grass silhouette, I have a couple mushroom silhouettes, and the cute little bird. And I also stamped my sentiment, wishing you a beautiful season. And this is all with using some VersaFine Clear ink in the color Pinecone. I thought having that dark brown would just be so complementary complimentary and pretty with the rest of the vibe of this fall card. Now, in order to help apply all of these images down, I decided to use some of the rip and stick 6x9 Trinity adhesive sheets. So I'm just gonna approximately cut a shape of this rip and stick adhesive sheet so that way it would stick behind my piece of cardstock here. So now that it's trimmed to fit behind, I peeled off the release paper of one side and I'm putting it behind my images, and I'm turning these basically into stickers so I can easily apply my images to the front of my shaker panel once we get to that step. I have all of the dies that coordinate with my images, and I'm just going to use more of this masking tape. This is just low tack sticky tape to keep my dies in place while I run this through my die cut machine. Now, I forgot to use a shim. I recommend using a shim when you have thick cardstock like this with an adhesive backing, but it's okay. I just used my scissors later on to trim any areas that didn't quite go all the way through my thick watercolor cardstock. I have my 8x3 flat acetate shaker pouch, slimline size, and I use my little tool to help me get the protective sheet off of the acetate shaker pouch, and then I'm adding some 1/4 inch adhesive to each of those 4 little sides of the panels, little flaps of my panels. And after I have all of those down, I'm going to line up my now dry background to the center of this shaker pouch. You can see it fits perfectly inside, and I'm just going to use my magnets here as my glass board is magnetic, so that way I can fold over each of these different flaps to encase my background inside of my slimline shaker pouch. So peeling off the release paper and then using my little scoring tool to help really reinforce that acetate, and it's secure to the back side of my panel. Now I'm going to go ahead and grab my different embellishments. Like I said, I have these really pretty autumn sunset leaf confettis. I just love the colors. I think it matches so well with the tones that I stenciled on my tree. And then of course I needed these crunchy leaves clay embellishments. I just think they look so good, and I'm going to create a look of, falling leaves on the inside of my shaker card. So once I have all of my leaves and I pick up my mess, I'm going to go ahead and add just some clear seed beads that I have in my stash to help with moving some of those embellishments around. And then I'll go ahead and close up my shaker panel by closing that last 4th side. So now my slimline shaker is all done. We can start assembling my card together after I pick up my mess. I have a slimline card base which measures 8.5 by 3.5, and I have this panel of kind of this glittery paper just from my stash that I trimmed to also be 8.5 by 3.5, and I use some strong adhesive to glue that down to my card base. And I'm going to use that same strong adhesive to add on the back of my shaker panel, and I will glue that to the center of my card base. So I have this really pretty shiny metallic leaves on the inside of my shaker card and a little bit more shiny on that background piece. So now I'm going to peel each of these images. Like I said, I turned them into stickers, and I just used my scissors anywhere where it didn't fully cut through, and that was just because I forgot my shim. And I'm lining up my tree to fit in the openings of my stenciled background. So you can see right where those branches covered the open areas on the background, but I'm just gluing it to the front of the shaker panel on the outside. I added the ground to the bottom, and I'm just trimming where it lines up with the edge of my shaker panel, and then I'm going to tuck in my little mushrooms and add my little bird to my tree. I have my sentiment, and I'm going to trim it in between beautiful and season. It actually works out really well, and I'm adding the wishing you a beautiful, and then season will be on the second line of my sentiment, just centering it to the center of my card. And that will finish off this Slimline shaker card. I hope you like seeing this new stamp set, die, and stencil set in action, and that you will have some amazing fun with the new release. You can get all of the info about the hop and how you could win a gift card down below in my description, as well as who to hop to next. And make sure you also head over to Instagram for that hop as well. Again, all the details are down below in the description. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you'll click like, and if you're new here, I hope you'll subscribe and come back. As always, you can find everything I use down below in the description box. Thank you and have a wonderful day. Bye!